You were lied to about Venezuela, not by conspiracy theorists, by serious people, experts, headlines, analysts who all repeat the same lazy explanation. Oil. They tell you this crisis exists because powerful countries want Venezuela's oil. And once you believe that, you stop asking dangerous questions. But here's the part they never explain. If oil was the reason, this would already be over. Oil is abundant. Oil is traded every day between enemies. And no modern power destroys an entire country to get something it can already buy on the open market. So why does nothing work? Why do sanctions fail? Why does pressure fail? Why does regime change fail? Because oil is not the real story. The real story is far more disturbing. Venezuela isn't being attacked for its resources. It's being avoided because no one trusts it, and no one can force trust into existence. Once you see that, the headlines stop making sense, and the crisis starts to look permanent. Venezuela sits on the largest proven oil reserves in the world. Not a little more than Saudi Arabia, more than everyone. On paper, this should make Venezuela unimaginably wealthy. Oil-rich countries usually have leverage, foreign investment, and geopolitical relevance. Yet Venezuela's economy has collapsed. Hyperinflation destroyed savings. Infrastructure decayed. Millions left the country. And most shockingly, the oil industry itself, the one thing Venezuela is supposed to dominate, barely functions. At first glance, this feels impossible. How can a country sitting on oceans of oil be poor? The mistake people make is assuming oil has automatic value. It doesn't. Oil underground is worthless. It does not feed people. It does not pay salaries. It does not stabilize governments. It only becomes valuable when it is extracted, refined, transported, insured, and sold. A process that takes decades, not months. That process requires three things Venezuela does not have enough of: capital, technology, and trust. Drilling modern oil is not about digging holes. It involves advanced seismic mapping, chemical engineering, complex logistics, and massive upfront investment. Billions of dollars are spent long before the first dollar of profit appears, and this is where the puzzle turns dark. Venezuela cannot afford this process alone. Its state oil company lacks capital, expertise, and operational efficiency. That means foreign investment is not optional, it is essential. But inviting foreign investment opens a door that Venezuela's political system has never been able to keep closed. When people imagine oil conflicts, they picture tanks rolling in, flags being planted, and pipelines changing hands. This image comes from the 20th century, not from how oil actually works today. Modern oil production is fragile. Destroy one refinery, one port, one export terminal, and production collapses for years. War doesn't unlock oil wealth, it vaporizes it. This is why real-world oil disputes almost never end in conquest. They end in contracts. Oil companies prefer boring deals. Governments prefer steady revenue. Investors prefer predictability. Everyone makes more money when no one fires a shot. That's why even bitter rivals trade energy. The United States buys oil from countries it sanctions. Europe buys gas from geopolitical competitors. China signs long-term contracts instead of launching invasions. War is what happens when contracts fail completely. And even then, oil is usually a side effect, not the cause. So if oil wars make no economic sense, why does Venezuela keep getting framed as one? Because the oil explanation is emotionally satisfying. It gives villains and heroes. It simplifies complexity. And most importantly, it avoids confronting a far more dangerous truth. The truth is that Venezuela's problem is not that someone wants its oil, that it's that no one trusts Venezuela enough to touch it. Oil is not like gold sitting in a vault. Ownership alone does nothing. A country can legally own every drop of oil under its soil and still earn $0 from it. Value comes from time. Oil projects take decades. Investors must believe that the rules they sign today will still exist 10, 20, or 30 years from now. Without that belief, the oil might as well not exist. This is Venezuela's structural trap. The country needs foreign companies to invest. Those companies need long-term security. And long-term security requires limits on government power. But limits are exactly what Venezuela's political system resists. Every oil deal creates a temptation. Once billions are invested and infrastructure is built, the government can raise taxes, change contracts, or seize assets. The investor cannot pack up an oil field and leave. That imbalance defines everything. Foreign companies know the risk. They price it in. Eventually, the risk becomes so high that even massive oil reserves are not worth the gamble. At that point, the oil stops being an asset and becomes a liability. In domestic economies, trust is enforced by institutions. Courts exist. Laws are binding. Governments cannot simply rewrite contracts without consequences. In international politics, none of that exists. There is no global court that can force a sovereign government to honor an oil deal it regrets. There is no police force to protect foreign investors when politics shift. Venezuela knows this. And investors know that Venezuela knows this. The country has a long history of nationalizations, contract changes, and asset seizures. Each one made short-term political sense. Each one destroyed long-term credibility. This is the core problem no sanction can fix. Even if Venezuela wanted to behave differently today, its past actions poison the future. Trust, once broken at this scale, takes generations to rebuild. That is why money stays away. Not because the oil is inaccessible, because the promises are not believable. Sanctions are supposed to force change. In theory, economic pain creates political reform. In reality, pressure changes incentives, and usually in the wrong direction. A government under sanctions becomes survival-focused. Long-term trust stops mattering. Short-term control becomes everything. Instead of reassuring investors, pressure convinces leaders that they must extract value immediately, by force if necessary. Sanctions shrink the pie. As revenue falls, desperation rises. Oil production drops. Infrastructure degrades. And the temptation to seize remaining assets grows stronger. This creates a feedback loop. Less trust leads to less investment. Less investment leads to lower production. Lower production increases instability. Instability justifies more control. Sanctions do not break this cycle. They accelerate it. Many believe Venezuela's crisis could be solved by replacing one leader with another. This is comforting and wrong. The issue is not morality or ideology. It is incentives. Any government that controls oil faces the same temptation once investments are sunk. The more desperate the state, the stronger the temptation becomes. New leaders inherit old structures, and investors know that today's reformer can become tomorrow's expropriator. Trust does not reset with elections. It resets with institutions, and Venezuela does not have institutions strong enough to bind future governments. Military power can enforce agreements, but only if it is permanent. Short-term threats do nothing. Symbolic strikes do nothing. Temporary pressure does nothing. To truly guarantee investor security through force would require indefinite dominance. That is politically toxic, economically costly, and strategically unsustainable. No democracy commits to that. Military solutions remain theoretical, powerful on paper, useless in practice. At this stage, a deeper realization emerges. Different actors want different things. Some care about regional stability, some about domestic voters, some about rivals like China and Russia, some about ideology, some about headlines. Oil becomes one variable among many. When goals conflict, strategy collapses. That is why policy feels reactive, because it is. Without credible commitments, nothing moves. Investment does not return. Production does not rise. Stability does not emerge. Every approach fails for the same reason. The system cannot promise tomorrow. So no, Venezuela is not about oil. It is about trust in a world without enforcement. It is about power without credibility. And until those incentives change, every strategy will collapse the same way. Because in the real world, you cannot just take the oil.